Hey everyone, can you see and hear me all right?
I can, yes.
Hey, Navneeth. Yeah, we can hear you.
Awesome.
Navneeth, we're just waiting for a few more folks to join, even it's just a minute past 5. So we'll start the session in like 2 minutes.
Sounds good. I can share my screen. I have a small presentation that I want to run through. Maybe after introductions or whatever you have planned in the beginning, I can start sharing, or I can start right now if that's how you want it to be.
Sure. I'll just be hosting the event for the day. So I'll just welcome all our members, introduce you briefly, and then hand it over to you, and you can share your screen then.
That sounds good.
And Navneeth, just real quick heads up, I want to ask permission. Is it okay for us to record this session?
Yeah.
We have several people that aren't here right now, but we would like to share the meeting with them. So, okay, so that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, that's okay with me.
Yeah. And by the way, my name is Mark Thuen. I'm the faculty advisor for the Product-Based Club. So just glad you're with us. I really appreciate you taking the time to be here.
Of course. Yeah. Nice to meet you, Mark.
Yeah. So now, Navneeth, Amlan and I were talking before you came on, and we, he's been promoting the event to our students, and we asked for students to RSVP, and we had about 160 respond yes, right? So we're expecting a good turnout, and so far we have, you can see the number there, and so we're expecting a few more, but anyway, just again, glad you're here.
That's great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting with as many people as possible. I'm sad that we are not able to do this in real life or in person, but nevertheless, Zoom or Microsoft Teams, they work well.
So where are you located physically?
I live in the Bay Area in California. Okay. Yep.
Yeah, great. So it's kind of middle of the afternoon for you, about 3 o'clock. Is that right?
Yep. It's 3 o'clock. It's bright and sunny outside today.
Okay, great. So you're more in the San Francisco area or San Jose or
South Bay Area? Yeah, you guessed it right. I live in San Jose.
Yeah. Good. Okay, yeah. Yeah, it's a nice area. It's been a while since I've been there, but it's a nice area.
It is, yeah.
Navneeth, shall we begin? I'm pretty sure people, they are just joining as we go. So let's just start the event.
Okay.
All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Product-Based first event for this semester. Today, we have among us Navneeth Ramprasad, who is a product manager at Netflix. He has also worked in companies like Wells Fargo and Meta in product itself. Also, one fun fact I found out today about Navneeth, that he has been an international table tennis player recognized by the Table Tennis Federation of India. Table tennis is ping pong, again. Pretty cool, I must say. All right, before I hand it over to Navneeth, a few housekeeping stuff. We would love for the session to be interactive. So in case you have a question for Navneeth, please raise your hand, and Navneeth would address that question when suitable. Or if you're more comfortable, please drop your questions in the chat box. All right, Navneeth, all yours.
Thanks, Amlan. Super excited to be here, and I'm unfortunately I can't see you all, but I'm very excited to speak with you today. As Amlan mentioned, feel free to interrupt me. I want this to be as collaborative and interactive as possible. This is not a one-way monologue. I actually am not a huge fan of presentations myself. I like it to be more friendly coffee chats. So raise your hands, interrupt me, ask me questions. That's how I like it to be. So cool. Yeah, Amlan, I think you saw that on my LinkedIn profile, or probably spoke with Santosh about my past life TT career. But yeah, I think that's something that I did a few years ago. But I'm still doing it on the side as a hobby. Cool. So I'm going to be sharing my screen. I have a small presentation I want to run through. Let me do that. Okay. It's taking me to system preferences. Oh, okay. So I probably need to quit and reopen Microsoft Teams. I'm using the desktop app, and for me to share the screen, I just provided security and privacy access to Microsoft Teams. So it's going to be. I'm going to come back in a second.
Done.
So just while we're waiting, how did you connect with Navneeth? Was it just through LinkedIn?
Navneeth is actually Santosh, one of our CR representatives' friend from
Okay,
school.
perfect.
They went to school together.
Yeah, we went to school together, and yeah, I mean, I think all through his, I think early days from school, he had like really sort of an outgoing and entrepreneurial spirit. I think he's just being too humble when he said that he plays TD on the sidelines. He, I think, was like, yeah, right there at the top, represented the school in various events right from the start. So yeah, I mean, I mean, he's now pretty much his career trajectory has been, I think, short of a dream ever since he came to the States. So I figured who better to kick off this semester's events than my very own school buddy. So yeah, I just reached out to him, and Navneeth has been grateful enough to quickly respond and then graciously agree to this event. So
Yeah, excellent.
Thank you. Thanks, Santosh. That was very flattering.
no.
So I'm trying to share my screen. Do let me know if you see something else. This is the first time I'm using Microsoft Teams, so please bear with me. I don't know what just happened. Okay. You guys see
You
my
can see your
screen?
desktop.
Is it? What do you currently see? Because I don't see anything on the screen.
It's just I guess your wallpaper.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
Mac
That's the screen
wallpaper,
you
the
see.
background
Okay.
for Mac. It's there we go.
Oh, you do
Also
see a
with a whole
bunch
bunch of tabs.
okay, but this is not the screen I wanted to be shared. It's my okay. Let me. Okay, it's not giving me screen one. Okay, let's try this.
I think you could just share the same window that you were sharing and drag the window that you wanted to share over that the shared desktop.
Yeah, I mean, I could do that, but I would probably be looking away from the screen. But yeah, that's okay. I think that's the only viable option right now because it's not letting me do anything else. All right, let's do this. Okay. Cool. You see my screen now?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Yeah, finally. Cool. So yeah, as Amlan and Santosh mentioned, my name is Navneeth Ramprasad. I'm a senior product manager at Netflix. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I've been in the US for the past 8 years. I came here in 2014 to pursue my master's in computer science. I studied at Syracuse University in upstate New York. I did my master's in computer science. After my graduation, I was a software engineer. I built iOS mobile apps for a very brief while, but I quickly pivoted to product management. And I've been a product management manager for the past 6.5, 7 years, you could say. And I've been enjoying it so far. So yeah, I have a very brief slide deck. I want to keep it. My rule of thumb is to have anything less than 15 slides for any event, be it a pitch deck or a career journey. So I'll keep it as brief and concise as possible. Again, as mentioned, feel free to interrupt me in between. I want it to be more like a conversation. Cool. So I want to start with a very high-level career journey of mine. As I mentioned, when I came here to do my master's in computer science, I had very little knowledge about product management. So I wanted to be a software engineer like most people. I graduated as a bachelor's of engineering in computer science in India. I had no prior experience in India. Soon after my bachelor's, I came to the US to pursue my master's. So I wanted to be a software engineer like most people, and I was lucky enough to get a break at a security company called Symantec Corporation here in the Bay Area. I worked as an iOS developer intern. I built mobile apps for their mobility teams, and I did that during my summer internship. After my graduation, through a personal contact of mine, I got a product analyst role at Wells Fargo. I worked at Wells Fargo at their headquarters in San Francisco in California for about 10 months. I was part of again, due to my past iOS engineering experience, I was part of the mobile apps team. We were building alerts and notifications for their iOS and Android apps. And I was part of their product team as a product analyst or an associate product manager, where I was working closely with engineers, developers, QA engineers to understand some of the customer requirements and make sure I build that requirements into some of the product features that product leads would eventually have in the iOS apps. That led me to a company called Comscore, which was on the East Coast. So Comscore is an ad measurement and analytics company. If you have heard of Nielsen, which is the world's biggest ad measurement company, if you basically every website and every mobile app that you visit is measured by Nielsen or Comscore. It tracks usage data. Every time you see a pop-up saying your cookies are being collected, it's either by Comscore or Nielsen. You can just go to the JavaScript on the web browser, and you can see a small script by either Comscore or Nielsen collecting your web data of your usage on the website. So I was a product manager on their TV team, which was basically working with TV publishers, TV advertisers like set-top box agencies like Comcast, AT&T, Dish, in helping them understand the throughput that they get with their users. So it was an interesting role for me. I worked very closely with customers, with their clients, in building some of the flagship products that Comscore currently has. So I worked as a product manager there for a little over 2 years, and that kind of serendipitously led me to Facebook, because Facebook has a huge ad measurement team, which I did not know about while working at Comscore. One of the recruiters at Facebook reached out to me on LinkedIn, and that led me to a job at Facebook at their ad measurement team. At Facebook, I worked on a few products across ad measurement, privacy, risk, and compliance. It was an interesting time for me at Facebook when privacy was the biggest concept. It's ironic to say that Facebook and privacy in the same sentence, but Facebook has been doubling or tripling down on their investment to beef up their privacy infrastructure internally and externally, to make sure that users are feeling safe using Facebook's family of apps. So we worked very closely with regulators like FTC, a bunch of consultants across various companies who were measuring Facebook's internal policies, processes. So we built a lot of privacy infrastructure from scratch. It did give me humongous experience in understanding what product management is, how product managers work across a multitude of teams in an organization spanning 50,000 employees across the globe and reaching more than 3 billion people at scale. So it was a great experience for me, and I worked there for 2.5 years. I would still consider that as my best product management experience so far. And very recently, I moved to Netflix. I think 6 months ago, last year, as a senior product manager on their enterprise software engineering team. So Netflix, again, it's an extremely different tech company. I would say the first day I joined Netflix, I was told it's not a tech company, it's a content company, and that's still true, because their main IP is their content. So we have a lot of internal teams supporting Netflix production, post-production, animation, and content teams. And me, as part of this enterprise software engineering team, we build a bunch of web applications across studio teams, across corporate teams, to help these business teams achieve their KPIs or their goals. So that's been my career journey so far. I would say it's been quite exciting to have the kind of journey that I've had so far, and I would say it's still getting started, and there's a lot of scope for product managers in the US and outside at this point in time. So taking a step back here and talking about why product management was the right fit for me. So I would say back in 2014 or 2015, when I was pursuing my master's, I had very minimal knowledge about what product management was. And also it is mostly because product management wasn't as huge as it is today. There were sure product managers at large companies like Microsoft, Google, Facebook, but obviously I wasn't exposed to that kind of information on LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook. For me, I always wanted to build products from scratch. I consider myself a builder. I have built apps myself, but for me, I wanted to get the complete experience from scratch, an end-to-end experience where I could go out and speak with customers, understand their pain points, and deliver a product to make them happy. So I would say that entrepreneurial fire or drive was always in me, and I wanted to channel it in the right direction, and product management was something that could cater to some of my needs. The second bullet point that I've mentioned here is core to being a product manager, and I'll speak to it later in some of the subsequent slides. But product intuition is something that I would say is very intuitive to me, where I see if I'm using a product, it could be a software app or it could be a hardware product. I kind of think of it like a builder. Like, what would you do if you would want to improve the product? What are some of the pain points that you experience on a day-to-day basis? That kind of help me build that mental muscle to gain product intuition. And the final point is structured thinking. For a product manager, you need to build structure out of unstructured things, meaning you need to come in when there are a lot of ambiguous, vague ideas, and you need to have a structured approach to solving problems. So for me, that is something that was always naturally or organically present. So I thought this could be the right option for me. Cool. So who exactly is a product manager? I'm pretty sure I don't have to give you the definition. You guys are MBA or master students, and you have a good understanding of what a product manager does. So, but I'm still going to give you my definition of it. I see product manager across three foundational or elementary pillars: business impact, increasing leverage, and customer problems. So when I say business impact, it's generally bringing impact to the company or to the product. As a product manager, you need to do impactful work that is a no-brainer, but what exactly could be business impact? For that, it could be understanding what is absolutely necessary for the business. It could be the top line goals. It could be the bottom line goals. It could be engagement. It could be customer service. It could be monetization. So understanding what that is and delivering on that impact is absolutely important. Increasing leverage basically means increasing leverage of people around you. As a product manager, you're not the builder. You're not the one who's implementing it. You're more of a collector of ideas. You're not the one who's always the smartest in the room. If you are the smartest in the room, I think you should probably change your room a couple of times, but you have to be in a room where other people are smarter than you, and you are the one who are consolidating those ideas for them and collecting it in a nice fashion and bringing people together to achieve business impact. So that is increasing leverage in my understanding. The third pillar is customer problems. Again, it's a no-brainer. You are a problem solver at the end of the day, and the problems have a deep-rooted understanding from a customer. So you want to understand what the customer feels. So you can't work in a silo. You can't work in a room. Being a product manager, you have to go out, speak to the customers, understand their pain points, understand their workflow, and solve problems for them. So I think these are the three essential pillars for being a product manager. PM responsibilities. So this is was an interesting Venn diagram I came across on the internet. You can see a watermark that says lennysnewsletter.com. Lenny Rachitsky is a popular product advisor. He was a product lead at Airbnb, and he has a very famous product newsletter called Lenny's Newsletter. And in one of his newsletter editions, he spoke about the jobs of a product manager. And as you can see on the screen, it's basically understanding the impact between shaping the product, shipping the product, and bringing people together. So it's a fine balance between understanding how you can get the right people on board, how you can shape the product from a problem, and how you can ship it, meaning how can you execute it and how can you understand the execution or delivery of a problem that you're solving. Okay, so I know a lot of you folks, or most of the people on this call, are interested in pursuing a career in product management. So I wanted to have a couple of slides to talk about why product management would be important for you, and if not, why should you or why shouldn't you pursue product management, right? So there are hundreds of other opportunities out there after you graduate. And product management is just one of them. Sure, it is one of the hottest jobs right now, but I want to ensure that you are picking the right job for yourself, because again, it's an extremely challenging space. It moves fast, and you'd need to be absolutely, I would say, passionate with the role before you're pursuing. So for me, you should definitely pursue product management if you're excited about solving business challenges. So if you want to solve big problems, if you want to build the next search engine, or if you want to build the next enterprise SaaS solution, or if you want to build a marketplace, then I would say you are fit to be a product manager, because you're thinking about business solutions, business challenges that impact and scale millions of people. again, similar to that is opinionated about product experience. So you would generally be a good product manager, or you would have that product management sense in you if you're deeply opinionated about the products that you use on a day-to-day basis. It could be apps that you regularly use, or it could be hardware products that you cannot live without. So what are some of the deep opinions that you have about these products, and making sure that you are thinking from a product manager or from a founder's perspective or from a builder's perspective to form opinions out of those. Uh, Third bullet point talks about working well with business and technical partners. Product manager is a cross-functional role in an organization where you work with both technical and non-technical partners. You have an array of stakeholders that you typically work across. So you'd want to make sure that you enjoy working with both technical and non-technical people. That doesn't mean that you need to be coding or you need to be a salesperson. It just means that you need to understand, be empathetic, be open to collecting their feedback about how you should work as a product manager. Uh, the fourth bullet is very similar to the third one. Again, speaking with customers, you'd have to go out and speak with customers. This doesn't mean that you need to be someone who is constantly out there and speaking with customers on a day-to-day basis, but you need to have a regular feedback loop where you're collecting their pain points and incorporating those into your product requirements. And the final point is, again, it kind of is related to the first bullet point, which is think like a founder, work like a builder. Product management doesn't mean you are the CEO of the company or the CEO of the product. That is often misinterpreted on the internet, where I see a lot of people say, okay, you're the product manager, you're now the CEO of the product. That is not the case as far as my experience goes, because a CEO obviously has a lot more responsibilities than a product manager. You're accountable for a lot of things, but there are a few themes that could be relatable with a CEO, because you are responsible for the ultimate success of the product and the failure. So you need to own the product end to end, and you need to think about both success and failure as a byproduct of the product. And you need to make sure that you're building it iteratively like a builder. You can't think about an idea today and have it executed tomorrow. You need to think about how you can execute it in an iterative fashion. Okay, so this might be a bit controversial, but I wanted to put this slide to make sure you are getting both the sides of the equation here. So do not pursue or think about pursuing product management if you expect to run the show all by yourself. This is not it. You have to work with a bunch of people. Most times than not, it's more about aligning people, working with stakeholders. You might not like it. It's not just about product innovation. You don't just come in and build products on day 1 or day 10. For the first few weeks or months, you'll just understand what the market is, what the ecosystem is, work with people, get their trust. Trust is absolutely important for a product manager, because you're working with a bunch of stakeholders and you're building the requirements yourself. So for people to work on your requirements, they need to trust you intuitively. And this happens not just on a professional level, but also on a personal level. So you'd need to build that personal connection with the stakeholders that you work with. So it's absolutely important for a product manager to be open to collaboration. Do not pursue product management if you think it is easier than coding. This is often another misconception that I've seen, where a lot of software engineers who have been software engineers in the industry for 5 or 7 years, they come to me and say, okay, I don't think I can go up the ladder anymore. I'm a senior software engineer. My coding skills are deteriorating. I probably would be a better product manager. I think that's a very wrong way of looking at product management. Yeah, it's not a stopgap solution, or it's not a natural progression from software engineering to product management. Oftentimes, I've seen software engineers being very, I would say, bad product managers, for lack of a better term. So make sure you're passionate about building products, not just from a coding perspective, but from an end-to-end perspective. Similar to that is you're not willing to be technical. You have to be technical, although you don't code on a day-to-day basis, or you don't use an IDE. You'd have to sometimes look at code. You'd have to sometimes understand what an API is, what the backend infrastructure looks like, because to be a very successful product manager, you'd have to work very closely with engineers, and you're not just writing user stories or use cases and giving it to engineers to build that stuff. You'd have to understand their perspective, what their pain points are. So it's absolutely important for a product manager to have some level of technical expertise in their arsenal. And the final point is something that I haven't mentioned here, but would want to share with you folks, would be to be open to feedback. So product manager is someone who oftentimes work with, I would say, 10 to 20 stakeholders across different teams. And the approach that you take would not be liked by these stakeholders. So you'd have to be open to feedback. Sometimes the feedback would not be great. Sometimes it might not be polished. It might not be sugar coated. But as a product manager, you need to take feedback both from internal stakeholders and from customers. It's not that you go in as a product manager and you build only successful products. You're not Steve Jobs, or you can't be the next Steve Jobs. So you will face a lot of failure in your career while building products, while shipping features. So you need to be, I would say, open to feedback both from customers and from your internal stakeholders. Okay, this might be interesting. So feel free to, again, ask me questions. So how do you transition to product management? So these are, I would say, it's definitely not the end all be all to be a product manager, but in my understanding, these four paths would lead you to be a product manager, in my opinion. First one is internal transition. So this is, I would say, the simplest way to transition to product management, because there is no degree or there is no set path to be a product manager. You could pursue MBA, you could pursue masters in technical management, but that doesn't ensure you a job in product management. That's only because the field is so open and wide. A person who pursues a music degree could be a product manager. A person who pursues a sales degree could be a product manager. It all depends on how you shape your career, and I think internal transition is one of the best ways to understand your internal business, understand your products. If you're working in an intermediary role like a project manager or a program manager or a business analyst, then chances are that you're interacting with product managers are extremely high. So make sure that you build that connection with product managers. A lot of product managers are stretched thin across the organization, so you can help them take their load off their back, and you can moonlight on opportunities, and you can help them build roadmaps, or you can help them write PRDs if it's helpful. So that's a path to becoming a product manager internally, and it also helps you understand what your products are. You could also try junior PM or APM roles. This is, I would say, it's a bit tricky and extremely competitive in this nature. Google, Facebook, Uber, a lot of these big tech companies have APM roles, but the number of applicants are extremely high. As you imagine, a lot of bachelor's and master students apply to be APMs. It's not to say that you won't be an APM, but I would say the pool you're competing with is extremely high. The third one is join a startup in any role. So for me, I would say working at a startup and working at a big tech gives you completely different experiences across the industry. At a startup, you're doing a lot of different roles. Even if you're joining a startup as a product manager, you would be doing a lot of different roles. You would be doing product marketing, you would be doing sales, customer service, technical writing. So you would do a bunch of roles in a startup. So you would get a lot of experience and expertise across these roles. So if you have the opportunity to join a startup in any role, which is at the intersection of technical and business, then I would say you should definitely consider that. The fourth one is build something on your own. So this is, you guys hear some
Navneeth, you're muted.
I think
Yeah.
you're muted. Yeah.
did I mute myself just now, or
No,
is it?
I was trying to
No, I
mute
guess a couple
everyone
of
just
seconds
to.
back. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, thank you. So the final point here is to build something on your own. I think this would definitely give you a lot of leverage, not just as a product manager, but it could lead to something big. It could be a side project that you're building. It could be an app that you're building with your friends. It could be a service. It could be anything, a website. Uh, Building something from scratch will give you an end-to-end experience of how product development happens, and that experience could be leveraged on your resume, on your it could basically help you be a better product manager in the future. Let's see. Okay, so how to be a top PM or a 1% PM. So this is, again, these are, according to me, some of the skills you need to have as a product manager as you progress in your career. And I've just listed them. There might be more, but these are some skill sets I thought would be absolutely important for a product manager to have in order to be extremely effective and impactful. Metrics informed decisions. So as a PM, it's extremely important to be both qualitative and quantitative in your approach. When I say qualitative, it's important to understand the perspective of your internal team members, be empathetic, go out and speak with customers, get their feedback and opinion. And also at the same time, it's important to have a quantitative approach to things, to look at data, to have some sort of KPIs when you're building a product. When you're typically building a product, you have a set of success metrics that you're tracking against. These success metrics could be engagement, could be monetization, could be revenue. So it's important to understand those success metrics and build products according to them. Metrics informed decisions is definitely a top one for me here. Passion and ownership. So I would say owning the product from an end-to-end perspective is a no-brainer here. You need to be passionate about the thing that you're building. So choose a career or choose a product that you're absolutely passionate about. It's even better if it's a product that you use on a day-to-day basis, or something that you have built or contributed to in the past as a user. So that way you can have that real user ownership and passionate about the product that you're a part of. Facilitating discussions with ideas. So this is kind of a tricky one as you progress in your career as a product manager. Once you become a senior product manager or a group product manager, uh, you often consider yourself to be an expert in any field that you're working in. And I've seen a lot of product managers come into the room and give out ideas and not facilitate ideas. This means that basically you would want to facilitate ideas between different stakeholders and not the only one who's giving out ideas all the time. So that comes across as a bit I would say assertive and aggressive, which is not the core trait of a product manager. uh, Organizing chaos. So yeah, this is my favorite bullet point here, which is basically I would say if I had to describe management in one sentence, I would say organizing chaos. It's basically in a team or in an organization, there's a lot of chaos. It's never structured. Even if you work at a startup or at a company like Facebook with 50K employees, there are always improvements to make. There are always efficiencies to achieve. So as a product manager, you need to keep identifying and observing those, and basically you need to identify the signal and in between a lot of noise. So that's something that is extremely important for a product manager. The last one here is listening twice and answering once, which is again a favorite of mine, where it's important to listen more as a product leader or as a product manager. You'd want to take in opinions of different team members or customers, and then formulate an opinion of your own. It's good to have opinions, but it's always good to listen from others as many times as possible to make sure that you're there for them. As a product manager, you're more like a cheerleader or a therapist for your engineers or for your customers. So you're understanding their pain points. You need to be extremely empathetic and listen to them very carefully, and make sure that translates into the products that you're building. Cool. Okay. What are some? So this was something that I just put together. So when I think about the ultimate traits to be a lifelong leader, this just doesn't apply to product management alone. It applies to any field, not just in corporate, but also outside of it. But if you are going to be a leader one day, managing different people across the organization, building products, I think these three are absolutely important. First one is curiosity. So I think curiosity leads to a lot of things, especially as a product manager. You need to be extremely curious. You're not given a problem. You're there to identify problems. So you're just given a space, an open white space. And most times it's greenfield area. You just go there and you're extremely curious, and you speak with a bunch of people and understand what the problem is. So curiosity, I would say, is the root cause of a lot of problems that's being solved today. And the most efficient problem solvers are the most curious people out there. High agency is, again, you'd have to be extremely, in my opinion, high agency is something where a product manager would come in and force their direction more than others. It's important where you are hired as a product manager, your intuition matters more than others. So you need to have that agency to say, okay, this is the direction that we'd want the product to go into, and this is what the KPIs are important, or whatnot. So I think basically high agency means you'd have to have the courage and the intuition to move the product in a direction you want it to be. Selflessness. So selflessness is, again, it's not something that would be core to product management in general, but again, in an organization, you can't just have things your way all the time. You need to think about others. You need to think about the motives of different teams. You need to formulate that all together. So most times than not, it's not what you want, but it's what someone else wants, or what the team wants, or what the customer wants. So you need to be absolutely selfless at times and think about the outcome. And that way the products will come out to be a lot more shinier than it is right now. Cool. Any questions so far? I've been going on and on for the past 30 minutes. So I just want to pause here to see if there are any questions before I have have 2 or 3 more slides. So feel free to jump in.
So there are a few questions in the chat window that people have asked. I don't know if you click on the chat bubble.
Oh, I can.
You should be able to see. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. Let me.
I could read them out for you, Navneeth, if you'd like.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. So Saurabh asks, can customer problems be understood from user stories?
Can customer problems be understood from user stories? I'm not completely sure if I fully comprehend the question, but I'll try to answer it. Feel free to follow up with another question. So the way product user stories are written is extremely, I would say, in a structured way. So you'd first start with the problem. You'd first understand the problem, build a definition around it, and then you'd have a mission statement to say, okay, this is how we are structuring the problem in a way that would solve it. And then based on the mission statement comes different user groups, user segments, and then comes user stories. So user stories is often the last piece of the puzzle, where you know what you're solving, and you're just the user stories help you break them down into different pieces. So if you're building a search engine, then you'll have like hundreds of different iterations. And these user stories help you execute on those iterations. So sure, user stories and customer problems are aligned with each other. The user stories that you write are for the customers. So I would, in a short way, I would say yes, if that's what you were looking at.
Right. He then continues to ask, is Netflix a good learning organization for product management internships?
Sure, yeah, 100%. I would definitely say yes. If you have come across any internships at Netflix, then yeah, I'm not sure if Netflix hires product manager interns yet. We just started hiring interns, I think a year ago for software engineers. Netflix had this weird policy where they would only hire people with 5 or 6 years of experience. It's only because Netflix doesn't have any levels. Internally, it's a pretty flat organization. But I think sometime in 2020 or 2021, they started hiring software engineer new grads and software engineer interns. But I haven't seen any PM interns or PM new grads, but I could be wrong.
Great. Shashank asks, in your experience comparing to developer role, how product management role was different with respect to responsibilities and roles?
Oh, I could probably write a book on this, but I would say it's a completely different experience, and it's a completely different role with different responsibilities. As a developer, you have I would say you are part of the team, but you're not building the problem yourself. You're executing on that problem. As a product manager, as I mentioned in the past, you are given an area and you need to come up with a problem, and you are defining the problem. So once you define the problem, you define different requirements coming out of the problem. Based on those requirements, you work with engineers to solve those problems or execute on those problems. So engineers, I would say, they are absolutely important for implementing. If it's a more technical product, then engineers work from the beginning. But for consumer products or for enterprise products, product managers define the problem, work with business stakeholders, work with customers, have a good understanding of the product strategy, and then go to engineers to say, to poke holes into it from an engineering perspective. So I would say both engineers and product managers are absolutely important to build large scale products. Without one of them, I don't think any successful product today would be built.
Awesome. Melissa asks, would you say there's a seamless transition from project management to product management? In other words, starting out in project management before moving to product management?
Sure. Yeah, I would say yes, absolutely. So starting out as a project manager, you do get access to what product managers do. I would say project management is a small subset of what product management actually is. You cannot move away from project management. Even if you are a product leader, you need to understand what projects you are managing on a day-to-day basis or on a weekly basis. So it's not that project management is something that's on a low level and product managers only work at a leadership level. You do a lot of resourcing, you do a lot of timelining, you do a lot of road mapping. So all of these are requirements of a project manager. And I would say working as a project manager gives you a lot of experience working with different stakeholders, working with engineers and understanding those requirements. And also it gives you a first-hand experience working with a product manager. So if you ever get an opportunity to start off your career after graduation as a project manager, then I would definitely take it.
Awesome. Shashank asks, do we need to have general perspective of or domain knowledge in order to, or expertise in any field in order to become a successful product manager?
I would say yes and no. Obviously, you can't, if you haven't worked as, let's say, for example, if you're applying for applying to be a product manager at Oculus and you do not have any understanding of AR, VR concepts, or you haven't been an engineer working on computer graphics, you cannot be a successful product manager building Oculus. right? So you need to have some expertise, you need to have some background, and that's the beauty of being a product manager. You can't just straight out go out and be a product manager. You need to have something. You need to start out your career in something, and everything can lead to product management. So it's not that if you tomorrow after graduation, if you become a solutions engineer or if you become a business analyst, it doesn't have to be that you'll be a business analyst for the rest of your career. You can leverage your experience as business analyst or as a sales engineer to be a product manager. You can change your domains in between, but you can only take one step at a time. You can either change your role from a business analyst to a product manager, or if you are a product manager, say working on an enterprise company, you could switch to being a product manager at a consumer tech company. So having domain expertise is important to a certain degree, but once you are a product manager, you could move around if you have that level of expertise.
Great. Shilpa asks, is it possible to have a transition from software development engineer to product management? If yes, please let me know.
Yeah, this I think is the most common question I've come across on the internet so far. So transitioning from a software engineer to a product manager, I would say the path to being a product manager to software engineer is not super challenging. If you've been a software engineer at any technology company, then chances of working with a product manager in the past would be high. So you can leverage that expertise to help your current team understand how you work with product managers. Even if you do not be a product manager immediately, you can take on an intermediary opportunity like a technical program manager, which is basically a role that sits between product managers and engineering managers. So we work closely with engineers on one side to understand their requirements, their resources, their timeline, and on product managers on the other side to understand the roadmap and strategy. So if you're not able to make the transition immediately, I would say consider different opportunities that lie in the intersection of engineering and product. Tap into those opportunities, and I think that transition would be seamless.
Awesome. Naveen asked, what is the role of a product analyst? Will this position offer a good start for transitioning from data science or analytics to product management?
Yeah, so product analyst is not an industry-wide opportunity. I haven't come across a lot of product analyst roles. It's I would say it's more like a data analyst or a data science analyst or a combination of data analyst and business analyst. You do work with technical teams and with product teams, but you're not the one defining problems or defining the strategy. You're more like someone who is digging deep into the backend data or working directly with customers. You have a subset of responsibilities that product managers typically do, but you don't have all of them. So I would say right off the bat, if you have an opportunity to be a product analyst or a data analyst or any kind of analyst, it's definitely a good segue into being a PM.
Great. Anurag Rajiv asks, does certification help in product management? He also requests that you mention a few.
Okay. My answer to this would be a bit controversial because I would say absolutely no. But again, it's my opinion completely, and there are a lot of product managers who have benefited off of certifications. I see Product School as one of the main providers of product management certifications. There are a bunch of them in India. There are a bunch of them here in the US that provide these certifications. But if you want to understand more about product management, if you want to understand um, what product managers do, then pursue the certification. But if you want to get a job out of it, if you want to put that on your resume, then I would absolutely say no against it, because as a hiring manager or someone who is part of the hiring committee at companies, I don't recognize product certifications as any form of product experience. I would rather see what kind of side projects you have done. If you have built any project on your side, it could be a technical project, it could be anything. It could be a website, it could be a hardware product. I would consider more than a certification.
Great. Shashank asked which certifications to pursue. Does the product base provide any trainings? I'll actually take that up. Shashank, no, as of now, we do not provide any certification. We are not for profit. And yeah, that's that. But we can definitely put you in touch with some that do. All right. Rahul asked, what does a typical day of a product manager look like at Netflix?
That's a good question. Okay, typical day. There are no typical days. That's the best part about being a product manager. Every day is exciting. I would say my typical day at Netflix has about 60% filled with meetings and 40% for me to work on other things. When I say 60% meetings, it could be one-on-one conversations with my teammates. It could be weekly syncs. It could be project meetings. This usually happens during the first half of the day. The second half of the day is pretty open for me, where I try to work on the roadmap for the rest of the half, try to connect with different team members to understand what they're working on and incorporate into our product. Typically, as a product manager at Netflix, I have a domain that I'm leading. I have my own squad of engineers, designers, QA engineers, and I report to a product leader. So we have a product domain that we are owning, and we basically have a roadmap of every quarter. So we build a roadmap at the beginning of the quarter, and we work with engineers and other teams and other stakeholders to execute on that roadmap.
Great. Pakshal asks, what all industries do have product managers?
What all industry? I would say every technology industry. I mean, if you're looking to be a product manager in a consumer tech company, then I'm pretty sure it has a product manager opportunity. There are, if you want to talk about industries from a technology perspective, I would say you could slice and dice into B2C, which is business to consumer. B2C companies are like Facebook, Google, a lot of consumer tech companies that we normally use on a day-to-day basis. Then we have B2B, which is mostly enterprise companies like Microsoft Teams, Slack, Okta, a bunch of other companies that cater to enterprises or businesses. So all these organizations or all these industries have a bunch of product management opportunity, product leader opportunities. So yeah.
So
Great.
Navneeth, if I may just briefly interrupt you here. Sorry,
Sure.
Amlan. So oftentimes we have sort of heard product leaders, product owners, and product managers sort of be used a little interchangeably. So would it be possible if you could sort of shed a little more light of either the hierarchy of things or how similar or different a product manager is when you compare to, say, a product owner or a product leader as such?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say product managers are basically ICs, individual contributors, and product leaders are, I would say, director of product management, where they manage a team of product managers. Product owners, on the other side, I haven't come across a lot of product owner roles. At least in the companies that I've been part of so far, we did not have product owners. It could be a misnomer between product management and program management. Product owners are basically folks who manage the roadmap and the product. Some of the responsibilities overlap with the product manager, but I would say it's pretty similar to being a product manager.
Cool, thanks.
Great. Shashank asked, do we require to take the PMP exam?
PMP, I'm assuming that's the project management certification, right?
Professional,
No,
yes.
professional. No, I absolutely uh, advise against it. Do not waste your time and money on these certifications. These are extremely outdated, and the industry doesn't recognize any of these. Unless you want to learn what project management is, like Six Sigma and other things, then please go ahead. But if you're wanting to be a product manager in one of the consumer companies, then none of them recognize it. Although it doesn't affect your resume in any way. It doesn't go against your resume or your qualifications, but it's just a waste of time if you're investing your resources.
Great. Monica asks how PMs are different from business analysts. As business analysts' role in most of the companies is about stakeholder management, requirement of feature gathering or analysis.
Yeah, that's right. So business analysts do perform some of the responsibilities of a product manager. The product manager is more like a leader of a particular domain in an organization. You don't just do stakeholder management or requirement gathering. You are someone who's responsible for the end-to-end strategy. So when you come in as a product manager, you are the one who's responsible for building that strategy. And when I say the strategy basically has a bunch of different components weaved into it. It could be building the mission for the product, building the long-term vision. As a business analyst, you are not the one who's building the vision for the product, but as a product manager, I need to know what my product will look like in the next 5 years. So if someone comes to me tomorrow, if the CEO of my company comes to me and says, what would your product look like in the next 5 years and how much money would you invest in it? I should be able to answer that question. And I should have a really good strategy backing it. So you need to know what short-term goals you have and what long-term goals are being planned for your product. So stakeholder management, requirement gathering is just a very small part of being a product manager. But as your responsibilities grow, these responsibilities diminish in nature. Probably it's more of a junior PM, APM kind of a responsibility that overlaps more with BAs.
Awesome. Mosun Molua Grace, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. She wants to ask about the nuances and types of product management. There are a few types of roles she's aware of, like PM for feature releases, etc. Growth PM, that is moving the metrics, experimentation, lead PM, etc. I wanted to ask how these PM roles differ from industry to industry.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I would say product managers generally have 4 to 5 archetypes. You've mentioned it right. There are PMs who are more focused on go-to-market. That includes feature releases. You work a lot with product marketing people. You work a lot with marketing and sales, with customers to understand how you can release these features in different geographic markets. What would the pricing strategy look like, and things of that nature. So that's one archetype. Growth PM is definitely another archetype where you'd work on top of the funnel metrics like activation, acquisition, awareness of a product. If it's a new startup or if it's a product that hasn't been used by a lot of users, then growth PMs come into picture to increase engagement, increase retention, and build monetization off of it. There are a couple more archetypes. Off the top of my head, I would say platform PM is another, where you're a bit more technical. You work on features like APIs, backend infrastructure. You build a platform for developers to come in and access your API. So if you are a software engineer and you're wanting to transfer to a product management role, then this is a great archetype where you work on APIs, backend infrastructure. You still have that technical, I would say, technical muscle to pull, where you're working with engineers more than other teams. Then what else? Yeah, there are other archetypes like enterprise PMs and consumer PMs. Like enterprise PMs generally work on enterprise B2B products. I've been an enterprise PM for the majority of my career. The metrics that I track are different from that of a customer or a consumer PM. The metrics that I usually track are like recurring revenue or customer acquisition costs or annual contract value or things of that nature, which is not very pertinent to consumer PMs who track daily active users, monthly active users, clicks, visits, ad retention, things of that nature. So yeah, the PM roles differ from different company to different industry to different domain. There's no one size fits all. There's no one opportunity that would help you become a PM in another company. You could be an engineer and be a PM in another technical company. You could be a sales person and work as a PM in a product focused on sales. So there's a lot of fluidity and flexibility in the product management community right now.
I think Sarang has his hand up. Sarang, you can go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. First of all, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Navneeth, for this brilliant presentation. I had this question as an early PM. There are certain frameworks we use, like the RISE framework for prioritizing product features, or the RFM framework for user behavior, etc. So, as an early PM, do you use these frameworks or a mix of these frameworks, or you are expected to be the first principal thinker right from the outset?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I think these frameworks or industry-wide frameworks I've seen on the internet can be used to some extent. RISE is something that I've used in the past for prioritization of my product roadmap. But on a very high level, I think these frameworks would just give you a way to think about how you can solve your problems, but it's not extremely pertinent to the company you're part of. Oftentimes it's a collaborative exercise where you work with different team members, where you work with different stakeholders to make a decision as big as prioritizing a part of your roadmap. So frameworks do work, but I would say do not depend completely on them. Frameworks I would only to get your foot into the door or to clear an interview might be important to show the interviewer that you are structured in your thinking, which is obviously important for a product manager. But if you are a product manager in a real world tech company, then these frameworks would not be very pertinent.
Thank you.
Professor, you could go ahead, please.
Sure. So can you talk a little bit about the culture of Netflix? So a few of us on the call are probably familiar with the PowerPoint from probably 5, 6, 7 years ago with Patty McCord, and it says a lot of very bold. It makes a lot of very bold statements, and I'm paraphrasing here a bit, but one of the statements I remember it making or seems to make was, hire superstars, fire the rest, right? Superstars we love, we keep. That's what we want. Everybody else gets a severance package, right? So can you talk about just your experience with that and I guess the overall culture at Netflix as well?
Sure. Yeah. The actual line is adequate performances get a hefty severance package, which is pretty bold to be on the culture deck. But yeah, for Netflix touts a lot on being culture driven, and this kind of imbibes into every single product that we build. Even while interviewing, I basically had to talk about different aspects of my past work that related to the Netflix's culture principles. Every culture principle they have on the culture deck that you're referring to is currently heavily referenced in every product that we build. Believe it or not, every single day, culture principles like freedom and responsibility, tightly coupled, loosely aligned, things of these principles are extremely, I would say, high regarded by leaders like Reed and Ted. And it's absolutely necessary to be a part of the culture at Netflix more than anything. It's an innovative company, sure, but Netflix is known for its culture, and it tries to bring in people who are absolutely part of the culture and in love of the culture as part of the entire Netflix community.
Great. Said Faizan asks, he has a couple of questions. What are the technical skills required to get a job as a PM in Fang? And any specific skills to stand out from the application pool?
What are the technical skills required to get a job as a PM in Fang? Okay. I would say there are no technical skills required to get a PM opportunity. Like I mentioned, you need to understand certain concepts as a PM. That doesn't mean you need to have a bachelor's or master's in a technical field. Sure, you can be a past software engineer, or it could be a highly technical person that's coded in the past or developed software in the past, but that doesn't ensure an opportunity as a PM in any of the companies that I've been part of. I'm not sure about Apple or Amazon or Google. There are a lot of PM roles that are highly technical, that are working on technical products like AWS or infrastructure or things of that nature. But generally speaking, to be a consumer tech product manager, you don't need to have a certain technical skill set. You just need to understand the difference. I would say, like, basic things, like you need to know how an API works. You need to know how like the backend infrastructure work. You need to have basic understanding of databases, SQL in general. So I would say that's the most you would require. I've never come across any product interview where I've been asked to code in real time. If they did, then I would probably consider that as a red flag. But yeah, fortunately, I have. I don't think there are any technical skills you would absolutely require to get a job as a PM in Fang.
Great. Chris asks, like Lenny's newsletter, are there any other articles or blogs that give more insight on the kind of processes that product managers undertake? Perhaps even books?
Yeah, the slide that I'm sharing right now, basically, it mentions a bunch of product leaders that I typically follow on LinkedIn and Twitter. Just like Lenny's newsletters, these product leaders write frequently about product management, about organizational leadership, about product interviews. So you can, if you follow them, I think that's basically like going down the rabbit hole, and you can follow a lot more people from their posts. They collaborate a lot on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and just from their posts and their newsletters, you get a very good understanding of what real world product management is.
Awesome. Himasri asks, could you expand on the APM program, specifically explain the process of non-FANG companies?
I haven't, just to preface here, I haven't been an APM myself at any big company. So the APM program at Facebook is known as the Rotational PM program, or RPM program. It opens once a year in August. It basically targets people who are new grads, people who have less than 2 years of work experience. And there are very few requirements. It's all about interviewing. If you ever get an opportunity to interview, then you should definitely take it. And the interview process is the same as any product management process. It's basically a bunch of these themes where you're asked between product sense, product execution. It could have a case study, behavioral questions like leadership and drive, and a few technical questions. So APM interviews are the same, if not more competitive than any PM interview, because as I mentioned in the past, it's more competitive, and you're basically competing with a larger pool of talented new grads.
Great. Navneeth, do you want to continue with the presentation and come back to the questions later? Because we have been answering quite a few
No, I
questions.
think that was, I think we covered pretty much it. I think this was where I stopped, right? So this was the slide that I had, and we also spoke about the different product leaders to follow, and that was pretty much it. Unless you want me to talk about the PM interview pattern, then I can go over it. I'm pretty sure someone else would have asked the same question. So yeah, we can go over all the questions.
Okay, great. So Siddhant asks, how can we build side projects? Could you give us an example and what aspect of project should we focus on and the projects to work on?
Well, I think it's left to your imagination. The side projects that you can build as a student is definitely endless. So you have a bunch of talented people here on the call. You just need to hit them up, form a team, and work on the weirdest and the wackiest ideas that you have. So that's a side project. So it doesn't have to be a website. It doesn't have to be an app. No one needs to code. You can basically do whatever you feel like doing. So if you or you can one of the side projects I did when I was a student at Syracuse was work with. So we had an internal tinkering lab, or it was more like an incubator for ideas inside Syracuse. So I worked with one of the professors to build an iOS app for booking on-campus student deliveries. So we had basically Syracuse is known for its harsh winters, and during the winter season, the university would drop students to their homes after the night class. So we built a very basic iOS app where you could book one of the shuttles that would drop you home. So, I mean, the opportunities are endless. You just need to see what problems you're facing right now, and you can start building those. I think now is the best time to work on those ideas so that it works out in a lot of ways, not just on your resume, but also gives you a great opportunity to work with a team, work on your ideas, understand how products are built.
Great. Makaran asks, as a PM, are you given a roadmap to start with, or do you have a say on the roadmap?
Ah, okay. So you're generally not given a roadmap. Probably for a junior PM or for a new PM starting off, you would be given a roadmap. You would not be given a roadmap in any opportunity. You would be given a set of problems, and you would have to come up with the roadmap. You're given a problem, and you have to probably come up with a structured way of solving that problem, and that structured way would translate into a roadmap. A roadmap is essentially a bunch of projects that you aim to solve in a certain timeline. It could be a roadmap for 6 months. It could be a roadmap for 3 months. It's basically the problems that you want to solve. Most times than not, you're not given a roadmap. You're not given a problem, as I mentioned. You're just given an open area. You're asked to work with a set of people to identify those problems, and you have to come up with all of these solutions. If you're given a roadmap, then that certainly is not a product manager opportunity. It could be something else, like a program manager or a project manager, where someone else has a larger say on what the roadmap should look like. But typically, you are the one responsible for defining the roadmap.
Great. Himashri asks, products can get really technical sometimes. What's the best way to showcase the qualities of a good product manager while balancing the technical knowledge required to create the product?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the best way to understand the technical requirements of a product is to work with engineers from the very beginning. As a product manager, you shouldn't be working in a silo all by yourself. You're not defining a strategy based on what your understanding is. Engineers are responsible for building the product, so you need to collaborate with them right from the beginning. Once you start collaborating with engineers, you'll get a good understanding of what those engineering requirements are. What does their POV look like? So that's a good way to build trust from an engineering perspective, and also understand what the technical requirements are. So I would say work closely with your engineers, with your engineering managers, to understand your technical requirements, and also improve your technical knowledge on the products that you're aiming to build.
Awesome. Shashank asks, where PMs fit in Agile or Devops framework in your company?
We don't generally follow any Agile or any software development lifecycle frameworks. Even at Facebook, we did not follow any Agile methodology engineering frameworks. We had our own frameworks that kind of fit well with our requirements. We worked with engineers who would basically deliver on our projects on a 2-week sprint. So we define the use cases, we define the user requirements, and engineers would take up the projects and say this would take 1 sprint, this would take a couple of sprints. I've never been a part of stand-ups or anything. We at least at Facebook and at Netflix, we don't have the culture of monthly or weekly or daily stand-ups. We give a complete autonomy to engineers, to product managers, and we believe in their expertise. So once they understand and align on requirements, they are responsible and accountable for building that and executing on that. And we meet regularly if there are significant roadblocks, but we don't meet to understand what their progress is. So there is no Agile or DevOps framework in our company.
Awesome. Suraj asks, do most PMs work across the breadth of the product lifecycle, or are we seeing more roles evolving where different PMs are working on different phases or aspects, such as acquisition, user experience, etc., for the same product?
Yeah, good question. So this depends on the size of the company you're a part of. So if you're a PM at a smaller startup which has less than 100 people, then you would be working across the breadth of all product responsibilities. It could be growth, it could be monetization, retention, revenue, everything. As the company grows, you're stretched thin, so you would onboard a lot more PMs. That way you could focus on a certain skill set. You could focus on just growth, you could focus on just retention, you could focus on customer service. So yeah, it depends mainly on the type of product and the type of organization you're a part of.
Great. Sukriti asks, can you elaborate more about your day-to-day work in Wells Fargo as a PM? What are opportunities for PMM in finance industry?
Yeah, I wasn't a PM at Wells Fargo. I was more of a product analyst. This was a junior role. After graduating from college, I had zero full-time experience while working at Wells Fargo. So I was extremely raw in my approach. So as a PM, or I would say a PM apprentice at Wells Fargo, I basically worked on an array of things. I worked with customer service representatives to understand the different customer service tickets that we used to get from users of Wells Fargo's apps. Our team was responsible for sending out alerts and notifications every time a customer would withdraw money from an ATM. So we were working closely with customers, CS reps, UX designers to make sure the alerts and notifications are reaching the right people. So my role was kind of hybrid between business analysis and data analysis. And product managers would come in when they would need to tap into some of the data that we had collected. So it was a good, I would say, a good understanding of how products were built at Wells Fargo. So a great opportunity for me to get started. Your second part of the question is, what are opportunities for PM in the finance industry? I'm assuming you're meaning fintech. I would say the opportunities are endless. It's a great time to be a product manager as part of a fintech organization. With blockchain, with cryptocurrency, with Web3 imminently reaching all of us, I think it's the right time to leverage your expertise as a PM in a fintech company.
Awesome. Saurabh asks, how are interviews at Facebook like for product management internships?
Oh, okay. For internships, it's the same. As you see on the screen here, it's generally, I would say, 4 to 5 rounds, both for internships and for full-time positions. The interview process is pretty much the same. You start off with, I would say, typically when you apply and when there's a mutual fit, the recruiter reaches out to you and they give you a rundown of what the interview process looks like. And the first call is typically with an existing product manager at Facebook, and it's a product sense interview. It's a 45-minute interview where you'd be given a prompt on the go. And a product sense or a product design interview is something like you need to come up with a solution from a very vague problem area. For example, a prompt could be, how would you improve Facebook stories? I'm not sure if you guys use Facebook anymore or Facebook's app anymore, but Facebook did launch Facebook stories a few years ago when they launched stories. So one of the common questions for product sense interviews at Facebook would be, how do you improve Facebook stories? It's a prompt as vague and ambiguous as that, and you need to come up with a framework. There are no right and wrong answers to this. You are the product manager. You're designing the product, and you're understanding how you can improve Facebook stories. So you basically have to first understand the prompt a little better, ask more questions, not just dive right into the solution, come up with the mission statement as to what you're trying to improve, what metrics you're trying to improve or measure up against. When improve is a very vague word, like what does improve mean? It could be improving engagement, or improving clicks, or improving users that post stories. So all these questions will lead you to building a better framework. And that's product sense. Then once you have product sense, you have another 45-minute product execution and analytics, where it's a similar interview as product sense, where you are more metrics driven in this interview. The questions might look like, if you are, assume you are a PM on Instagram news feed and the engagement falls by 50%. So how would you troubleshoot this, and how would you improve the engagement from here? So you need to think like a PM here. You need to be extremely data driven and analytical and come up with a solution. Again, there are no right or wrong answers to this. So, but you need to solve the problem in the right approach without getting to the solution directly. And there are a bunch of frameworks. I'm pretty sure you guys are aware of it. Exponent is a YouTube channel that has a bunch of these videos where they conduct mock interviews for companies like Facebook, Google, and they talk about these interviews. So you can look it up and understand what these interviews actually look like. Then there is leadership and drive, which is essentially talking about your background, understanding what kind of past experience you've had. It's more about, tell me about a time type of questions, like tell me about a time you had a conflict with your team member. Tell me about a time you collaborated with an engineer. So you need to come up with really structured answers, not just one-liners, but you need to give a story. You need to be a great storyteller. You need to have data backed with it, and you need to talk about the impact that you've made in your past experience that would be translated as a PM. So it's an elaborate process, not to bog you down with all the details, but it definitely is worthwhile to be sort of going down that path and understanding more about the interview process, because it could take a while to get used to the patterns, get used to all the frameworks, and just understand how well you can do perform during the interviews.
Awesome. I think next is Brandon's. Yeah. So Brandon says, I'll be starting an internship this summer in product management. And I'm curious, what would you say are some of the key competencies I should focus on developing during my internship?
Yeah, congratulations on scoring that internship, Brandon. So I think key competencies would be, I would say, 3 to 4 areas that you need to absolutely have. The first one is show empathy. You come in as a product manager, you are not there to provide solutions right off the bat. You're there to listen to the pain points and the challenges that the team is having, and that's the main reason that they've hired you, to kind of streamline those problems into buckets of solutions. So have a lot of empathy. Second, be as uh, proactive and curious as possible. As an intern, you have this white space greenfield area where you can work on a bunch of things, and you are able to collaborate with different team members. And it's just a 3-month process, so you're not given a lot of responsibilities. You're not extremely accountable to deliver on things. So it's, think of it like a fun experience where you're getting to meet with a lot of different people. So meet with them on a regular basis, understand what they do. That goes a long way. And finally, be as organized as possible. So it's important to, at the end of the day, it's important to deliver business impact, even as an intern. The reason you're being hired as an intern is to show some impact at the end of your internship. So from day one, understand how you can chart out a 30 60 90 day plan where you sit with your manager to understand what your responsibilities would look like at the end of 30 days, at the end of 60 days, and at the end of your internship. That way you can meet with your team regularly to see if you're still meeting those goals and those requirements in a way that would help you secure a full-time opportunity, or in any way help you secure have a good experience at the end of your internship.
Awesome. Saurabh asks, do referrals from current Facebook employees add value to an internship application?
Oh, definitely. I would say yes. But the number of referrals that recruiters get is extremely high. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you need to have a really good resume. Even if you're being referred, it doesn't guarantee you a job. It might give recruiters a minute or more to look at your resume, but more than that, even if your resume doesn't fit the bill or fit the requirements, then you wouldn't be getting a call, even if you're referred by someone else working at Facebook.
Yeah, definitely agree with that. I think Siddhant's question is already answered probably. How do you prepare for a product-based job interview?
Yeah, I think we covered that a few minutes ago.
Yep, that's all the questions from the chat. If anyone wants to ask any question directly to Navneeth, please feel free to speak up right now. Awesome. I think we're good for the questions. There was a long session for questions. Awesome. Navneeth,
Awesome.
any
That's
final
great.
words to our members?
This was a great session. I thoroughly enjoyed answering all your questions. I would definitely um, would want to keep in touch. If anyone has any other questions, feel free to drop a line on my LinkedIn, and I'll be able to answer your questions when I have the time and opportunity. But yeah, I would say everyone here has an equal chance of becoming a product manager at any company that you wish to be. It's not just the Fangs. There are a lot more companies that are providing better and bigger product manager opportunities. So think outside the box, think outside the Fang notion that we all have. It's not just Fang anymore. It's outside of Fang. It's Fang Plus. So keep your horizon open, cast a wide net, and apply to as many opportunities as possible, and keep interviewing. When I got the job at Facebook, I'd interviewed at more than 30 companies, and I'd failed 28 of them. Facebook was literally the last opportunity that I cleared. So it's a numbers game. It's not something that speaks to your experience or your expertise. It's all about the interview day and the luck on that day. So keep interviewing and keep hustling.
Awesome, Navneeth. Thank you so much for giving such precious time today. I know that we took a lot of your time today, so thank you so much for joining us. Also, before we leave and the event, for our members, we are planning an interview prep session, for which we'll be bringing out product managers from top Fang companies, as you would say, to mentor you, to interview you, to review your resume, to do mock interviews with you. So if you are not a member yet, please sign up on our website. And we'll also be sending out a survey on our post-event mail. You can feel free to respond to that, and we'll definitely be taking in your inputs for the event.
Also, guys, before we all leave for the day, can we all take a picture? Like, if any of you can switch on your cameras.
Always ready for pictures.
Okay. I'm just trying to. Navneeth, can you stop screen sharing for a sec?
Oh, it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, got it. Got it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.
I'm putting up the survey in the chat if anybody is willing to do it right now.
Awesome. We'll also be sending out that email.
Yes.
Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. Thank you so much, Professor, for joining us. Overwhelming response.
And enjoyed it. Great. Navneeth, thank you. And good to see everybody. Have a good rest of the night. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, guys. Yeah.